What? Coming up next, it's an all-new Kirblog at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock Central, only on Kids WB. Or maybe the Fox Box, maybe both. Just kidding, it's on neither of those things, because they don't exist anymore. I was asked about my favorite marketing campaigns. Those little things that have changed so much because most people don't watch cable anymore. But I have 20 years of very distinct memories, close to 20 years of distinct memories of commercial campaigns and contests and sweepstakes and all sorts of things. And then I'm going to talk about not only my favorite ones that I've experienced being advertised to, but also my own experience with marketing and making commercial type stuff and et cetera, because that became an integral part of what it is that I do on a daily basis. So in my probably single digits and up through like my early teens and stuff, absolutely most kids in America, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Kids WB, perhaps one of the three or all three. I was not a Disney Channel kid, unfortunately, so I missed out on a lot of the experiences of that. So feel free to fill me in the comments about what it is that I was missing for all my life. But all three of those were just master stations at getting kids, to stay for the 4-hour block of cartoons, Saturday morning or, weekdays of whatever, after school, before school, etc. Nickelodeon in particular had so many sweepstakes, and they were kind of on the cutting edge in terms of the stuff that they would try to get people involved with. I mean, for one thing, just having the amount of game shows in and of itself that they would invite, regular schmoes to come on, and then alongside stuff like Figure It Out, which was mostly comprised of, the actors, doing the shows that they were doing at the time. And otherwise, but I have a distinct memory and being so jealous of the kids that were able to do this. I do remember very distinctly there was a Nickelodeon Halloween sweepstakes. This would have been the late 90s, where they had giveaways where you could call in, and it was Halloween themed. The kids would call in on the phone, and then they would be asked to pick a number to trick or treat, like virtually at a house on this kind of interface, if anybody knows what the hell I'm talking about. And they had this like CG kind of like probably very crappy looking 3D animation of like going around like a neighborhood that they would play like in tandem with the kid calling in, and you would go up to the house and then go trick or treat, and then it would open up and a skeleton like ghost would come out with, "You want a Nintendo 64?" Back when that was new, so that was the most exciting thing in the universe. And although, and maybe I've talked about this at some point in God knows how many years ago on other Kirblogs or videos or something, but I did get to experience that a little bit the very first time I went to Nickelodeon Studios at Universal Studios, Florida. The first time I went to visit, when I was probably about 4 years old, I went with my whole family and my sister Allie, who of course was on The Adventures of Pete and Pete. We got to go do like the game show that was like meant for the Nickelodeon Studio tour specifically. And she got slimed, which was great. And I got to go up and do sort of like a small slice of the Nick Arcade type of experience, where I got to play Sonic 3 when it was also pretty new, I think. And to me, as a little 4 or 5 year old, like on a huge screen up top, and that was that's an image that is burned into my retinas forever in a good way. Kids WB. I have to give them major amounts of credit. Now, all Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network and Disney Channel, they all did this as well, where they would have ads that would involve crossing their characters over with one another for various things. But my God, like Kids WB especially, because and particularly because they had such a tremendous lineup of of different shows and different characters from different things from all over. They had anime stuff, they had original domestic stuff, they had Warner Brothers properties, they had X-Men, so they have Marvel characters and things. And I would love to meet one of the editors that actually got the chance to do a lot of those ads that they would do in between shows, where they would have like, Nightcrawler from X-Men interacting with Lan from Mega Man, interacting with Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh!, interacting with Sylvester from the Looney Tunes, like all at once or whatever, like, and then Jackie Chan comes in, all these different things. I feel like everybody that just even watched any of those shows on Kids WB, everybody remembers that like that was a common. And it's funny because that now. Like you could look at like Crunchyroll that like licenses like a million anime and like they'd never be allowed to do something like that. And I wish that there was some kind of way to be allowed to do something like that. I wonder about like who wrote those advertisements, like how did they coordinate like doing them, like how did they get, you know, like the footage and kind of like, especially with those probably not so great editing tools that they had back then to like kind of rotoscope out a character and have them cross together. But it really made you feel like the WB lot was where all of these shows were taking place. Like even the shows that they didn't own or they didn't produce themselves that were licensed, like the 4Kids anime stuff and everything, it made you feel like these characters were all living, breathing, you know, and all able to genuinely interact with each other. The fact that they actually got, for the most part, the real voices of all of them, like for each, you know, little ad that they would do like that, which must have been a nightmare considering like, all right, we got to get this from Canada, we got to get this from New York, we got to get this from LA, etc. It's really incredible. And I do give Cartoon Network credit too for doing that for the Cartoon Fridays. But what I give them more credit for, this is an incredible marketing campaign, and there was something I learned about this in particular that really blew my mind, was the Cartoon Network You Pick. Now, for those of you who might be too young to remember what that is, but I'm sure you know the shows that came about as a result of it. So Cartoon Network, first of all, they used to have this block on Friday nights that was literally called Cartoon Fridays. Cartoon. And it was hosted by, depending on the night, they would have a rotating cast of different Cartoon Network characters hosting it each night, and sometimes more than one at the same time. But they had usually a block of the original Cartoon Network shows: Ed, Edd and Eddy, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Two Stupid Dogs, a lot of dogs. And what was cool about Powerpuff Girls, Dexter, Johnny Bravo, the usual suspects. But what was really cool about the You Pick program was basically they ordered a bunch of pilots. I think it was like 10 or 12 or something. It was quite a few, and they aired all of them. I think it was either all like in one night or maybe like over the course of a few nights or something. I can't quite remember. But they basically played all of these new pilots all within like a span of time, close to back with each other. And then they would let fans write in by sending in letters, or I think there might have been like an early thing on because the Cartoon Network website was still kind of an unpolished, it was very small, but they had quite a bit of content. I shouldn't even say it's unpolished. It was actually pretty in depth for, something in the 90s. Actually, they're also kind of on the cutting edge with this. But you could send in votes, and the pilot that got the most amount of votes and was the most voted on and the most popular of that program would hopefully get picked up for a full show. Now, I don't know how much it may or may not have been necessarily rigged. But they did actually like make full shows out of these in terms of I don't know how much of the voting actually mattered, if there might have been some executive overhead with this or whatever. But one of the years, as I'm being reminded, Billy and Mandy won, and Whatever Happened to Robot Jones was the runner-up of that year, and they both got picked up. And similarly, a different year they did this. Codename Kids Next Door got picked up. That was the winner. And Sheep in the Big City, I think, was the number 2 winner, and they both got picked up and made into series. Now, what I remember, and this is something that I learned a few years ago that I thought was very funny and actually is kind of genius in terms of this goes back to the whole, marketing thing. The Tom Warburton, the guy who was the creator of Codename Kids Next Door, so he would literally go online to like message boards, like Pokemon fan sites and stuff like that, and he would tell people, hey, I did this pilot for Cartoon Network. They're going to be doing this thing where you could vote for the show to get picked up. If you like my show, like please, like he would literally encourage people on the internet to go and vote for his. Like that was a whole thing out of it, and I'm like, that's a really good idea, because again, this is like late 90s, early 2000s internet, and so the internet was a much smaller place back then, like still a big one, but a much more like isolated, like not so interconnected kind of place. So the fact that that may or may not have actually been something that actually affected the outcome was pretty incredible and pretty smart of Mr. Warburton to do such a thing. And yeah, and then we got, a bunch of really great new legendary cartoon series that went on for multiple seasons as a result of that. So now that's all well and good for, of course, marketing campaigns, within a channel for their own channel, to get, kids to want to watch a show on something that they're already watching. But of course, when people think of marketing, they're thinking of commercials. And, I did go ahead and in prep for this video, I watched a fair number of commercial compilations, old school things. And it's funny, for as much of them are like nostalgic or memorable, there's not a whole lot of them that I'm just like, oh, that was like an incredible, like, oh, this is my favorite, or oh, it like left such an impact on me or whatever. Like, if anything, I would say that what succeeds with that is usually anything that has like a catchy song to it. In fact, I was even thinking about this. I mentioned earlier with the Kids WB thing, just back to that for a second, the holiday sock party. Which they would do that every Christmas season or so. Where are you at the sock party? Right here on Kids WB. A sock party, which furthered my love that I already had for the song A Nutcracker Suite, which I also loved because of how much it sounded like Bandit's Way from Mario RPG, but nonetheless. Anything with a catchy song. I mean, I did find out, actually, a little crazy piece of trivia, that a director out here for anime, Alex Von David, who worked on Sword Art Online and Kill la Kill and Madoka Magica and Delicious in Dungeon and many, many great shows. He's a fantastic guy. Apparently, he directed a live-action Bomberman 64 commercial, which was a parody of the Spider-Man old school, the Bomberman, something's got a plan, do unfurled, 60 levels, 5 new worlds, look out, he's the Bomberman. The N64 commercial, I butchered that horrendously, but I found out that apparently he directed that to many, many years ago. And so some of those that I remember particularly, but for me, I think particularly about, because of course this is where my brain goes, about animation styles. I think I've only ever had a sip of Red Bull maybe once in my entire life at best. But good Lord, like the 2D animation for the Red Bull commercials is like impeccable. It's fantastic. Like it has such a distinct style to it. And I'm also never fully able to tell if they're dubbed or not, because the lip sync animation is always a little strange. But even to this day, when I see those, they make me feel so warm and fuzzy, and they don't succeed in making me want to get a drink that I think I've only ever tried like a sip of once many years ago at a convention. Probably Kira let me try some at some point, because she used to be obsessed with Red Bull before she was obsessed with coffee. But so it does not give me wings, but it does give me the warm fuzzies seeing it. I would be remiss not to mention the crazy good Pop-Tarts commercials, which I have mixed feelings about, because they're supposedly a complete ripoff of the Don Hertzfeld Rejected Cartoons animation style, which to the point where I think a lot of people think that he did the animation for those advertisements, when as far as I know, he had nothing to do with that, because he thinks that commercials are evil and a lie. So... but they, certainly I did love the animation on, even if they were ultimately, a bit of a plagiarism of that. And of course also the Tootsie Pop commercial, like the same one that they've been airing for God knows how many years, the original one. And although I was even reminded of the crappy looking CG one where, they'll eat your dog, they'll eat your homework, they'll eat you, the giant like metal skull head and the lizard guy. It's like, excuse me guys, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? And they're just like the lizard guy like wraps his gross like tongue around it or whatever. The world may never go like but the original like traditional animated one with the little stumpy kid, and he talks to Mr. Turtle and Mr. Fox and Mr. Owl. I think literally I'm so obsessed with it, and the commercial left such a lasting impression on me, that I think literally in the script of the Tome game, I think 2 different times I've referenced the "let's find out" a 1, a 2, a 3, a 3. How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know. Now, of course, one I've come to learn is a big lasting, made a lasting impression on a lot of people, were the early Bionicle, each set sold separately, commercial campaigns that they did for the probably the first 2 generations worth of Bionicle toys, which I collected most of. I think I have the majority of those toys. I know I have the entire complete first generation Bionicle set, like all the Rahi, all the Matoran, and everything. I have all of those collected because I was an insane person. Then I started to collect the second generation a fair bit, but I did not get everything because while those original commercials with the combination of showing the toys and some of the CG animation for what we were led to believe was going to be an animated movie based on the main Bionicle stuff, and we didn't get one until the Mask of Light years later, that really captured my imagination and made me want to get all that stuff and get really deep into the lore of Mata Nui and everything. And then I remember by the time that I was already kind of slowly getting out of Bionicle, they had the I think it was the 3rd generation with the even when your hope is gone, move along, and I'm like, as much as I love catchy songs in commercial campaigns or whatever, this is not doing it for me, and this is now making me find Bionicle to be a little lame, so that had the complete, opposite effect on me. I do have a very, very distinct particular favorite, and specifically for a certain feeling that it elicited within me that might sound completely uncanny. And you can still find it if you literally search Yu-Gi-Oh! Live action commercial. It will probably be one of your first hits. So it was, I believe, right when the card game was first coming out. Definitely within the first year or 2 of Yu-Gi-Oh's presence in the US, and they filmed a live action commercial where all these kids are running around a misty dark alleyway to go see a duel happening between these 2 kids. And I remember there was this one kind of slightly older kid with short brown hair going, "Playtime is over," and he pulls out the card and smiles evilly, and this really cool looking CG model of the Blue Eyes White Dragon comes out. And then of course on the other end, a spiky blonde-haired kid, "It's time to duel," takes out Exodia. Exodia comes in, eviscerates Blue Eyes. There's a kid with kind of messy hair looking through the fence at the duel. And all this made me think of was, because I was already sold, I was already collecting the cards and watching the show, I didn't need to advertise anything to me. It was something that, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I said it at the time, and now I'm saying it again because I still kind of feel that way now, is it made me want a live action adaptation of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I know that obviously that's oh god, monkey's paw, because this was before Dragon Ball Evolution. This is before it was just the era of crap for live action anime adaptations. But now that we live in a post One Piece live action world, honestly, I still kind of have that feeling. And even going back and watching that commercial again, I'm just yeah. In fact, it even made me at one point, I strongly, sincerely thought about trying to film a fan-made live-action Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie at one point. like a fake trailer, because a lot of people were doing that. Eddie LeBron, who I worked with for a few years, he did the Sonic live-action fan film and the Mega Man live-action fan film many years ago. And I wanted to... I wanted to do something kind of like that, but do a Yu-Gi-Oh! One specifically. And I never really pursued that too hard. I think I was still in college at the time I had that thought. But yeah, although something else that I did kind of want to make, and this is funny because this was, I think, right before Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge started coming out, which would have been, I think, 2006 or 7, right around that time. I wanted to do, speaking of other funny commercial campaigns, because some of these are horrifying and bizarre and scary, are the Cinnamon Toast Crunch commercials. Blah, blah, blah. Chris Niosi's a stupid bitch, but can he see why kids love Cinnamon Toast Crunch? I'm like, duh, because they taste okay. Duh, they have cinnamon sugar swirls in every bite. The taste you can see, I wanted to do a commercial, and I should have just animated it. I really shouldn't have waited to get actual footage. I should have just learned it to animate. I should have just animated it because I was doing that back then. I wanted to do a parody where it was Yugi and Pegasus having their duel at the end of the Duelist Kingdom arc. You can't win, Yugi boy. My Millennium Eye allows me to see everything. That may be, Pegasus, but can your Millennium Eye see? It's so stupid. Can your Millennium Eye show you why kids love the taste of Cinnamon Toast Crunch? Oh, is it because they have mystical Egyptian symbols on them? No, you ninny. It's because they have cinnamon sugar swirls in every bite. Oh, curse is defeated by General Mills. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And then Yugi comes out of the kind of faded 2 personalities. The taste you can see. I should have made this. I should have made that like way back when like that was just the thing to do, was making like parodies of everything ever at the time when I was really passionate about doing parodies of literally everything at some point. So, well, on the note of Yu-Gi-Oh, we can't not talk about Pokemon, and there's so much to say about Pokemon in advertising. Now, I've always said this for many years, and I've probably talked about this a bit in many Pokemon Kirblog that I've made over the years, but I think that it was a brilliant, absolutely genius idea that they launched in the US everything all at once for Pokemon. The card game, the TV show, the video games, the toys, like absolutely everything. I think that that was a really, really good idea to do that, knowing that it was, you know, very well proven in Japan. I don't know if it had been released in other markets at that point. They might have been doing that internationally, but you know, at the same time as the U.S. But everything, absolutely everything that they did with the entire, and it's so funny because I even remember, and this goes to show the really early days before they knew necessarily anything and everything just yet. But they had the KFC. Like whatever their like equivalent of a Happy Meal, like, you know, kids toy tie-in. That was the very first Pokemon kids meal toy that they had for fast food chains in the US at the time, because they did eventually do, I think literally both McDonald's and Burger King both had Pokemon at some point. Because I remember Burger King specifically had it for Pokemon 2000, if I'm remembering correctly, the Lugia movie. And I think maybe McDonald's might have had a tie-in for Mewtwo Strikes Back, I think. But KFC had it before that when it was just Pokemon in general. And I collected probably every single one of those toys. And they had a special bonus thing where they had 4 plushies. Where they had, and it was so random, the ones that they chose to make plushies of it. Well, you'd think it'd be like, oh, Pikachu and Squirtle and Charizard and Gengar or Poliwhirl or whatever. It was literally Vulpix, Zubat, Seal, and Dratini. Like the most random 4 Pokemon that you could possibly pick. And I have those plushies still somewhere back home in storage. I don't know, I couldn't tell you, but they're somewhere back there. So, and yeah, I remember all that stuff. In fact, actually, also, I was just showing. Actually, it was Toxic who we're going to be doing the or actually by the time this is out, we've been doing the Deltarune playthrough with Germ. But we were talking about some of those early Pokemon commercials, and she was reminded of, on the VHS tape that she had of some of the early episodes, they had the commercial of the bus driver having the 2D animated Pokemon going on the bus, and then he brought them to the trash compactor, and he's like, "Gotcha! Now you can catch Pokemon on Game Boy." That whole thing. And I was like, there were 2 other commercials. I remember there was the one with Pikachu coming out of the Game Boy and throwing the link cable across a kid's house like a lasso to demonstrate that you could trade in battle. I remember that one, and I couldn't find this commercial for the longest time. Like it was nowhere archived on YouTube, at least that I can find, until very recently. There was the Pokemon 2D animated commercial where it just shows a bunch of random Pokemon for Game Boy are coming, and they all get sucked up by a big vacuum cleaner with a Team Rocket R on it. Gotcha. Okay, I'll never share this story otherwise. When I was first getting into Pokemon, I think that was some of my very, very first exposure to it, was seeing that commercial. And I couldn't remember exactly how to draw some of them, but I do remember that Mewtwo, a very tiny Mewtwo, like not to proper scale Mewtwo, was in that commercial, like front and center. This is long before they did the first movie, I believe. And I remember like trying to like do a picture on some big piece of manila paper when I was in elementary school, and I wanted to draw all the Pokemon that I could remember from that commercial. And I just distinctly remember there was some kind of like gangly, like white sort of weird creepy looking creature, and I ended up just basically drawing like an elongated version of one of like the skeleton enemies from Banjo-Kazooie, because that was the closest thing that I could think of to replicate what that looked like in my mind. And it turned out it was Mewtwo in this random commercial. I was also reminded, because Tara Sands, who's been archiving quite a few old Pokemon commercials and Cartoon Network Fridays compilations and things on her channel, the 4Kids Flashback, which plug for them and go check out their podcast. She found this old commercial of I think it was like a Campbell's soup or maybe SpaghettiOs or something. It was some kind of Pokemon food commercial, and it was 2D animated, and it looked like the show, but it was like an American like white kid with like blonde hair, like eating the Pokemon like soup or macaroni pieces, whatever the hell it was. And that was definitely from around that same era of doing all that stuff. I should also mention a little piece of trivia regarding the late great Rachel Lillis, who was the original voice of Jessie and Misty and Jigglypuff in the dub for Pokemon. There was a time where she was the voice of Pikachu for a little bit, and she voiced Pikachu in all of those really early commercials that they had. So I thought that was interesting because I noticed, it kind of sounds like her doing her little cutesy kind of bubble voice for him in some of those early episodes where you could hear her kind of mixed in as Pikachu once in a while. So a little bit of trivia there. But yeah, all of those early advertisements for all the Pokemon stuff. And even I was reminded, like, to be honest, even just the Poke Rap, that in and of itself was a living advertisement in the show that didn't exist in the Japanese version before, and they had it as this like in bits and pieces kind of version of it. They would have like a verse, every episode that they would air at the time. So if they were airing them in syndication on Kids WB, or otherwise, like Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. or whatever it was, then you could hear and learn all 150 of them from the beginning. And it's just all these little things. Like, say what you will about 4Kids, man. Like, they knew what they were doing when it came to marketing, and they knew really, really how to commercialize this stuff. And they made Pokemon. They really, really helped make Pokemon into this like mega gigantic franchise. And we owe them a lot because that helped put anime on the map as a result of that. And even like Pokemon itself with certain video games, that ascended RPGs into becoming more popular. Kind of the strike all in a row of Super Mario RPG, Final Fantasy VII, and Pokemon. Suddenly everybody was playing RPGs all of a sudden. Which reminds me, another thing that I have a tremendous affinity for in terms of commercials, and not just out of nostalgia, but that's certainly where it started from, is Japanese video game commercials. A lot of y'all might know, or maybe if you don't, I still to this day have a single videotape of a fan-subbed, a very crappy, low-quality fan-subbed version of the final 2 episodes of Dragon Ball GT when they aired in Japan at the time, back in, I think that would have been like, oh my God, like 97 or 98 or something. And on that tape, because this was how a lot of those old VHS tapes that were, they collected of different things would work back then, is they would have the commercials still on them, taped from at the time in Japan. So as a result of that, 2 in particular that I remember really, really well were the commercial for Rockman X4, Mega Man X4, which is, of course, very funny because I saw in Japanese this really like dramatic cutscene that got me interested in it, that turned out, as I found many years later, to be the "What am I fighting for?" bit. Oops. And I also remember there was a commercial for Dragon Ball Final Bouts, which was a PS1 game, one of the first like 3D modeled Dragon Ball games. Not a very good one, I should mention. And that got me in. Oh, and I think Breath of Fire. That's right. There was I think it was Breath of Fire 3 or 4 or something for the PS1. I remember had some really cool 2D animation of the characters on that for the commercial. And so I've looked into a lot of those over the years, and especially as people have taped and restored various things from this, on YouTube over the years. My God, I've watched like hours worth of, Japanese commercial compilations of like, Game Boy, Super Famicom, PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64, like early commercials for, countless video games. And they're all really, really cool. Like I gotta mention specifically when it comes to the Super Famicom and the PlayStation 1, Jesus Christ, there are so many Japanese RPGs that I had never heard of in my life, and they all look gorgeous. They all have like this like amazing, beautiful 2D sprite art. And just watching some of them, and they would, a lot of them would often have like very, long, elaborate titles, or sometimes they would just have like a single English word as the name of them or something like that. So I don't remember a whole ton of them, but I just remember like going through some of those compilations. It's like, man, these are so unbelievably cool, and makes me kind of want to look into what some of these games even are, if they're even localized. Some of them probably aren't, for Christ's sake. And of course, now this is getting away from just commercials specifically, but of course I do remember the original Super Smash Bros. 64 commercial in America, where they had the Mario, Yoshi, Pikachu, and Donkey Kong in the suits, and that was my introduction to "You and me were meant to be, no matter how we toss the dice." That one, and then they end up beating the crap out of each other, like something's gone wrong in the land of Nintendo. You know, that first commercial for Smash Brothers, which was, I think, was my introduction to that. So happy together. And of course went and picked that up for the N64. I missed the original Melee commercial because since it was rated T for teen, I don't think it actually played on Cartoon Network or Nick or anything I would have been watching extensively at that time. So I didn't see the Melee commercial until, quite a few years later. And then, Masahiro Sakurai has talked about this pretty extensively in a whole marketing section of his Creating Games YouTube channel that he did. But I gotta say, he really got me enamored more than I possibly had ever been with Smash Brothers by updating the dojo 5 days a week. Literally, when I was in college, I would stay up every single night, almost every night that of Monday to Friday to check out whatever, it's Japan time, if anybody remembers that, to stay up and see whatever the next update was going to be. And I can vividly remember, from as disappointing as like stickers to, what do you mean Sonic's in the game? What do you mean there's a video trailer of him being in the game fighting Mario? Like that made it like such a ritualistic, like my first year of college was so exciting for that. It was crazy. And then of course going until right after college, when they were starting to market what eventually became Smash Wii U and then eventually Smash Ultimate. These trailers, these playable character reveal trailers that they've done over the years, I think has become one of the most universally hype things about being a video game fan in general, like ever. Like it's like this worldwide tremendous like holy shit event every time they reveal what the new character is going to be. And just like figuring out like, from the first 30 seconds or whatever, they're being kind of mysterious about it, and then they're not being 100% like direct about, who is it, what is the character, what is happening or whatever. And then like the really hardcore fans, if they really know exactly what it is, they might be able to like, piece it together. So, the last 10 years or whatever it's been of them doing that and revealing each of these characters and doing all this stuff between Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate has created just such a lasting impression on me, to the point where, I mean, even if we do ever get, a new Smash for the Switch 2 at some point, I mean, good Lord, like, I look forward to just the excitement of that alone just as much as I do the game itself, you know what I mean? Now, most of all, out of all this stuff that I've described and much more, this is what influenced me quite a bit into marketing my own stuff, as a matter of fact. Now, back in the day, for many years, I didn't really do much of anything in the way of marketing. But there were certain things that I was doing without even really thinking about it that were aiding in the same way as, marketing my own stuff. Because for those of you who don't know this, a lot of you, I should rephrase this. Many of you know that over the years, particularly when it comes to the Terrain of Magical Expertise tome stuff that I've done many Kickstarter campaigns, GoFundMe's, crowdfunding type things, where people can donate to to have their own character be a background little cameo or something like that in one of my animation projects, right? So, funnily enough, when I first started doing TTA, which of course was the first incarnation of Tome, and it was my very first long-term animation project that I ever did, that actually began on a forum called the Fallout Shelter, where I knew I was going to be submitting the episodes to Newgrounds at the time. And I decided to post on that forum, which was filled with people that had Sprite web comics and did Sprite sheets. There was a big community for that sort of thing, and said, hey, if you guys want to be background characters in this show that I'm making, just send me your character sprite, like a single pose of them, like having a little character sprite, and I'll put them in the background to populate this little virtual world with different things. And in that first day, I remember I had actually like a fair number of, I was a complete unknown. I was nobody back then. This was, 2004, I think. And I got quite a few submissions from people on there, actually, which was really cool. And that allowed me to have, from episode 1 of TTA, when I was literally an unproven random person, I had people, helping me populate the world of Tome with their own characters. And as the years have gone by, I mean, literally now it's been thousands of people that have been kind enough to, contribute their characters to the other 2 entirely new, incarnations of Tome that have come since those days. So that was the very, very first thing that I ever really did as far as like an actual marketing thing went. But otherwise, after that, really the only thing that I did at all was blogging. Because I remember, and you could probably still find it somewhere. It's probably still up. I had a blog spot, which is now so obsolete. I also had a live journal, but good Lord, we don't talk about live journal. That shit was disgusting and horrible. But my blog spot was where I was posting a lot of stuff about the progress of my, projects. I think I actually did make specifically a blog spot page for the Parody Rangers movie, which was going at the time. It was going to be kind of my next big major project that I was working on at the time, because that was going to be like a full length, like feature film, length animated Flash movie. And I made a blog spot to promote stuff about that specifically at the time. But that was really it. And like I was cross-posting stuff onto my Newgrounds account as well. But then I finally started giving into the fact that like YouTube was the place, like the kind of the ultimate place that like I needed to like really start focusing my attention on, as far as getting my stuff out there on a bigger kind of scale, because Newgrounds was great and I got a fair bit of attention, putting my stuff on there, but it was not nearly as much as the YouTube was just slowly becoming like the ultimate convenient place of everything ever. You know what I mean? So just kind of out of necessity, I started thinking a lot more about how to market the stuff that I was doing. Oh, and also not to mention that was in addition to me kind of like, starting to lessen my presence on Newgrounds and more onto YouTube, I was also getting out of doing parodies, which were inherently easier to just get popular without having to do any marketing, just because they were parodies. As opposed to when you're trying to do something original from the ground up, which was what eventually led to me doing the 2011 Tome series. I had to market it, and so that was also even one of the things that influenced the actors that I got to voice some of the main characters. That I would also have them upload trailers of them as their characters, like promoting the show to try to help get it out there, basically. So all these little things that I did. And even down to, the musicians I was working with, the other artists that I was having help me out, all these different things. Every little thing that I was doing, I was starting to think more and more and more about, how can I actually get eyes on this in the first place? Because it was completely out of necessity. It's like, if I don't, push harder with this, then no one's going to see this. Because at the time, I was really just known as like the Parody Rangers, Brawl Taunts, Rost Forest, Nintendo collab, like the Nintendo parody guy, basically. Like that was the main thing that people knew me for. And the thing about when you're, a person on the internet, and actually, no, that's not even true. And I would even say, as far as being in the entertainment industry, this is actually something I learned from, of all people, Charlie Adler, one of the greatest voice actors, a great guy, and actually one of the early teachers that I worked with many years ago. He talked about how when he made a transition from just being an actor to also being a voice director, of which he's a very accomplished one. He directed a lot of the Klasky Chupo series for Nickelodeon and stuff. He talked about how it was a bit of a struggle. There were some people that, were kind of challenging. he had a lot of difficulty having people take him seriously as a director, you know, because they only saw him in one way. And he made the point of how, like, you know, sometimes in entertainment, it's really difficult to get people to see you in more than one way, you know? And it's true, like, because it took a very long time. Like, I would say, well, it's funny because now it's arguable people probably know me more than anything, probably for being Reagan. Although I don't know, actually that's not true. That's not true. I think that because when I go to conventions, I get literally split down the middle. I get people knowing me for Reagan and my other voiceover work, and people knowing me for Tome. Like, the funny thing is, I'm kind of grateful for this. Now more people know me for my own original thing, in the case of Tome, than they do for my parody stuff. Once in a while, I'll get people that'll bring up, oh, I remember, you know, Brawl Taunts or Rost Forest or whatever, which is fine. I don't mind that. But that, you know, that was many years where, like, that was all I was known for, was my parody stuff. And it took a very long time to be able to kind of get out of that, you know, kind of single tubed kind of perception by most people. You know what I mean? But I'm glad that, like, I did stick with that. And it was fun too, because I kind of made it into, like, almost kind of a game for myself. Like, there were little things I would do, like, obviously when we got our first bit of merch with Shark Robot at the time, which that was a big deal, honestly, is having any kind of, like, merchandising deal. I was very grateful to be able to do that. I'm hoping that I'll be able to sell some more merchandise again at some point, because I'd like to do that again. It's been many years since I've sold, like, t-shirts or stickers or anything like that. But yeah, making the ads for the early Tome merchandise and everything. We had, like, a music CD, a little brief one with some of the 8-bit music tracks on it. And you know, having, like, the Smash the Mii fighters of the Tome characters, and you could make the Mii heads and give them particular move sets that were kind of similar to what they could do in the actual series and stuff like that. That was always fun to do as well. And yeah, just little things like that. And actually, at the time, I was thinking about this the other day too. Back then, one of my other kind of main tools for marketing the show was particularly using the Tome Facebook page. Back when Facebook was a lot more relevant on social media. Like, I was using Twitter by that time, but the Facebook page was the major kind of hub for, like, hosting fan art and, like, you know, putting out calls to action for, like, oh, we're going to be doing this soon, or, oh, like, tune in, like, this episode will be coming out, you know, at this time on this day or whatever, like, that kind of thing. Like, that was the main sort of area. And then, unfortunately, over time, it slowly became Twitter was the one that, you know, that became the kind of central hub for everything. And I got to say, actually, a particular note, when we were working on the game, and I mean, there's so much that's already been said about marketing the game, between the Kickstarter and, you know, all the different the contests that we had, which that was fun. It's, you know, the big culmination of everything I'd learned about everything, including marketing by that point. But I got to say, particularly, well, the contests were so much fun, and I was glad that we got to have special guest characters that came about out of the giveaway, the charity auction, the fan art contest, and the Name That Car contest. Like, those were so much fun to do. Like, I was very, very happy that was, like, a big thing that we got to do with the community of fans. And especially because while I was, you know, in hibernation for a year and a half, and the fan base, like, was overwhelmingly still there and still excited about the product and still, you know, checking it. I mean, doing the monthly update videos, and then eventually what in the last year of production became the quarterly update videos. I loved getting to make those. I loved getting to do, you know, these little kind of, like, updates and going into specifics and showing the actual progress of how the game was coming along, and then doing the, you know, who's that character, like that stuff, to preview what some of the new designs and the new personalities of the characters and all these different things were going to look like. Like, that was a ton of fun to do as well. And my ultimate kind of reward in that sense was doing those three big trailers that we had for the game leading up to the eventual release. And of which the third one is still there on my the front page of my YouTube. When you go to my YouTube page, actually, it's always there. The no more fighting, no more pouting, and no more messing around, like that whole thing. Doing this, the cinematicness of those particular trailers was so gratifying, and I felt so like official having that, even though like they're just commercials, but I felt really cool and really excited getting to make those and putting the project out there. And, actually, on the related note, I was just reminded, because we're recording this in our Discord server, and some of the folks in here have been giving suggestions and reminding me of certain things about more recent marketing campaigns that I'm a fan of. I'm really glad that, with the guys like the people at Glitch, they just premiered Gaslight District pretty recently. Just today, on the day that I'm recording this, there was a new ad of Charlie from Has Been and Blitzo from Helva having kind of a crossover promotional thing about some of their merch coming up. I think that's awesome that now indie animators, like even like the little guy, like we have the resources and we have the ability and we have the drive to market ourselves in that way and make money, doing what it is that we love as a result of that. And, playing the game, trying to get the algorithm to notice us so that we can build an audience and people can support us. I think that that's wonderful. I think that the fact that we can promote merchandise and Patreons, and I just started Cameo recently. I've had a lot of very kind requests from people for, birthday messages and pep talks and stuff like that. And all of it, just to be able to make rent and to be able to, put it into producing my own stuff and making art for people. It makes it feel less slimy in that certain sense, because there's a certain, I remember thinking this is an interesting little memory kind of related to the bigger picture of this. I almost forgot to mention this. When I was graduating from college from the School of Visual Arts in 2011, we had all of the graduates from all the different majors, and we had 2D animation, we had stop motion, we had film, and a comic book illustration, and we had advertising. And the advertising major had just so many people. It felt like just calling up all the graduates of that on stage alone took a full hour to do. And at first I was like, man, advertising, that's a soulless job. And I'm sure that in certain ways and in certain circles it can be, but I think that there is a fun way to go about it that doesn't feel like a soul sucking, crappy kind of, we got to do the McDonald's toys, kind of thing. Now it's I always think of also that great Disney documentary, the Sweat Box, where they show the part at the end where it's and now here's the part where the creativity goes out the window, where we're we gotta get the McDonald's Happy Meal toys or whatever set up for the Emperor's New Groove and yada yada yada. So, but I've had fun with that, and and the thing is, as a result of me doing these marketing things and commercial type stuff, I even literally in the last few years where I was stagnating a little bit and I was worried I wasn't progressing as much as I thought I as much as I wanted to. I'm getting closer and closer to 150,000 subscribers on YouTube. Even jumping into TikTok, I got more followers on TikTok when I've come back to the world now twice. In the span of a week, I've gotten thousands of people. I literally just I'm close to hitting 50,000 followers on TikTok. And even on that same note, getting to do this short form content, like these TikToks and YouTube shorts and everything, it allows me to stay relevant. It allows me to entertain people in a quick, sort of way. I feel like, Katzenberg with Queeby or whatever didn't quite work out, but people are just kind of doing that on their own. You know what I mean? And it all goes towards advertising. What I'm doing, these little quick things like the Reagan reviews and all that kind of stuff, so that it gets people to know of me and to care about what I do and who I am, so that when I can do something on a bigger scale like Balancing Act, that which eventually hopefully I'm going to do a crowdfunding campaign for, and then people will want to be involved with that and have background characters and cameos and that sort of thing. So that's what the hope is. And I've been enjoying it. It hasn't made me feel any more or less slimy than when I was doing nothing but parodies back in the day. But that's almost a full hour of thoughts on commercials and marketing and advertising and stuff. So in the comments below. I would love to hear all y'all's favorite commercials or advertising campaigns or marketing strategies or anything that even doesn't even have to just be like, oh, that was like something that was nostalgic or fun to me and like really got me hooked on, you know, wanting to try something. It could even be something that you admire, like, oh, that was a brilliant idea for, you know, press or for, you know, the marketing strategy or whatever. Like if you kind of think about things that way, I'm curious to know. And in the meantime, otherwise, this Kirblog topic was suggested by Kirilu Stromboli, who as of this month has been a patron of mine for 2 whole years. So if you'd like to suggest topics for videos like these, and if you want to hear me record them in my community Discord server before they release, please consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/Kerbifer. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope that you all will enjoy the Deltarune with annoying people talking over it playthrough series that I'm doing with Michaela and Germ. Chapter 1 will have been out by the time that this has been released to YouTube. So I hope you enjoy it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I've got a lot more planned, and of course look forward to the Escape the Forest Super Mario RPG music video. It's an original song by me coming out on May 13th to coincide with the anniversary of the game. So keep a lookout for that. It's going to be awesome. I'm really, really proud of it. And I'll see you on the next Kirblog. Take care. Enjoy. If any of you are having some level of cold weather before it gets excruciatingly hot out, enjoy that while it lasts. So, all right, everybody. I'll catch you all later. Bye-bye.